In this lecture, I wanted to show you how easy it is to audition for a job on voices.com. The last time I went a little fast and I skipped around, I didn't actually show you what I was doing. This time I thought, why not actually audition for a job and show it to you from beginning to end, all the way through recording and editing until the audition is submitted. So here we are on voices.com. I'm on my home page. And when I go to look at jobs, notice I get hiring, answered, awarded, done, and deleted. These are kind of the phases of a job. And I've answered 78 jobs. So I have 78 auditions out there floating around. And they're in various degrees of, you notice, status over here, hiring, deciding, completed. So they may be finished and I've already lost. I haven't won one yet. Or they may be deciding, or they're still accumulating auditions. And awarded is where you get your awarded jobs, and I don't have any yet. Deleted is a big area for me. These are the jobs that asked for things that I just didn't have to offer. And I want to show you what kind of things I'm talking about. Let's go to this expensive job. Now, most expensive jobs get into this kind of thing. Notice down here, okay, you read up here, the first thing you look at is over on here on the right, the accent, the role, the styles. And you go, okay, age range, yep, this is me. This is hitting me to a T. And then suddenly you go here, this project is for 2 regional TV spots, a 13-week term. So they want me for 13 weeks. They want me to do directed sessions. That means that I've actually got to go to a studio and be directed by somebody remotely, probably in Los Angeles. So this kind of job, I go, this is way in over my head. A lot of money. There's probably, what do we got? 90 respondents already for it. Not my kind of thing. So I go ahead and I delete that kind of job. The other type that I try and avoid is like this in Furness's voice. Here they want me to go learn or try a voice for a character, a demonic crackle. So this is a creepy voice. And I don't really do voices. I just do my own. So this is the way that things get deleted. It just doesn't relate to you. Sometimes it's looking for an African American or a Jamaican or an Irish or an English accent. All of these things are Canadian, and I don't have those. So they get deleted. So that's how, of the 138 jobs that have been submitted my way, that I've rejected 60 of them and deleted. Okay, so how do these get submitted to me? I go to hiring. These are the jobs that are hiring that I have not auditioned for. And I click on the title and I read, once again, going to the upper right-hand corner. Okay, this is male, English, no particular accent, role, or style. This is a storyboard. Feels like a tone like a pre-recorded conversation between 2 colleagues. The tone is inspiring and motivational. He's trying to get his friend out of a slump. So that kind of gives you the general idea of what we're talking about. So this is going to be a very conversational. Audition. So what I do then is I scroll down. Here's the sample script. Sometimes they tack it on as a PDF or a Word document that you've got to go read to get the script. A lot of the times they put the script right in voices.com. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, okay, I accept. I'm going after this particular job. So what I do is I use NCH WavePad. So here it is. I open it up. You can see all the jobs that I already have in here. I just click on this little plus sign to say, give me a new job. And then I say, start recording. Now you can see my recorded voice here. Most of the time I would be quiet during this because I'd just be moving over to where I actually want to record. But I'm talking so you can see it. But most of the time it would look like this. Now I'm going to minimize this. And while it's recording, I'm going to bring up the script and I'm going to start reading it. I've worked with hundreds of founders, and almost without exception, they all think they can avoid failure if they just work a little more. Now, I kind of slurred that, so let's try that again. I've worked with hundreds of founders, and almost without exception, They all think that they can avoid failure if they just work a little more. Work a little harder, but that inevitably leads to burnout. Michael, like you, I grew up on the beach and I've always found that there was never a minute misspent on a surfboard. You think you need to work 24/7, but that's draining. We want you at your best. Happy, healthy, balanced. So that was my conversation with Michael. And then what I would do is I'd do it a second time. I've worked with hundreds of founders, and almost without exception, they all think they can avoid failure if they just work a little more. Work a little harder, but that inevitably leads to burnout. Michael, like you, I grew up on the beach, and I've always found that there is never a misspent. I misspelled that. I slurred that, so let's start over again. Michael, like you, I grew up on the beach, and I've always found that there is never a minute misspent on a surfboard. You think you need to work 24/7, but that's draining. We want you at your best. Happy, healthy, balanced. And when I'm done with the recording, then I come down here to WavePad and I hit stop. And you can see here's the recording that I just did. Now let's start editing the recording. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to poke down in this area. I don't actually have to do this to do cleanup. I just like to be in the recording. And I've already recorded an area of silence so I can get the noise here. And then I apply the spectrum reduction, what is auto spectral noise reduction. It always comes out at about 30. And notice how my little silent areas now here are silent. The other thing that I like to do is I like to zoom in a couple. So I'm going to click in a couple here and zoom in and get on the far left. Now here's a breath. So we're going to get rid of the breath up to the beginning of the video by selecting it and doing cut. Now I'll go to the very beginning of the video and I'll start playing and we should hear it. Now you can see my recorded voice here. Most of the time I would be quiet during this because I'd just be... Now, one of the things I want you to notice, let's start over again. So I'll go to the beginning of the recording and I'm going to play again. I always watch this bar down here in the lower right to see how I'm doing with volume. See some of these spikes here? I hope that they don't go into the red, and I'm going to verify that by watching the spikes and listening for errors in what I'm saying. Now you can see my recorded voice here. Most of the time I would be quiet during this because I'd just be moving over to where I actually want to record. But I'm talking so you can see it. But most of the time it would look like this. Now I'm going to minimize this. And while it's recording, I'm going to bring up the script and I'm going to start reading it. I've worked with hundreds of founders. Okay, now here actually I'm explaining what I'm doing. So I'm going to take out the breaths and everything up through my explanation because I don't need that in my ultimate recording. And I'm going to select it all and I'm going to hit cut. So now we've gotten rid of that. So now let's go to the beginning of the recording. I've worked with hundreds of founders. And almost without exception, they all think they can avoid failure if they just work a little more. Now, I kind of slurred that, so let's try that again. I've worked with hundreds. Okay, and I'm going over again from the very beginning. So we'll take that from there, and we'll delete it all the way up to the beginning. And then I'll go to the beginning again. Let's try this again. I've worked with hundreds of founders, and almost without exception, they all think that they can avoid failure if they just work a little more. Work a little harder. Okay, let's get rid of that little breath here. I'm going to just select it. It was a little bit long of a pause there, so I don't mind removing the breath. Work a little harder, but that inevitably leads to burnout. Michael, like you, I grew up on the beach and I've always found that there was never a minute misspent on a surfboard. You think you need to work 24/7, but that's draining. We want you at your best. Happy, healthy, balanced. So that was my conversation with Michael. And then what I would do is I'd do it a second time. Okay, so now we're getting ready for the second time. Let's select that stuff that we recorded where I was commenting, and let's make sure we got it. So that was my conversation with So that is it. So we will cut that. And then I've worked with hundreds of founders, and almost without exception, they all think they can avoid failure if they just work a little more. Work a little harder, but that inevitably leads to burnout. Michael, like you, I grew up on the beach, and I've always found that there is never a misspent. I misspelled that. I slurred that, so let's start over again. Michael. Okay, and that I need to get rid of, so let's bring it back to, I believe, about here, and I'll play to make sure I have it. Michael. Yep, that was it. So we'll cut that section out, and I'll go back a little bit further and start playing. Like you, I grew up on the beach, and I've always found that there is never a minute misspent on a surfboard. Okay, here's a big breath. Let's get rid of that. Notice I leave the small breaths in there. That's okay. But these big, heavy ones I want out. You think you need to work 24/7? Okay, let's get rid of that mistake. We'll select that, cut it, go back a little ways, and then play again. You think you need to work 24/7? But that's draining. We want you at your best. Happy, healthy, balanced. And when I'm done with the recording, now there you go. Now I start talking about, and when I'm done with the recording, so we'll get rid of that and cut that out. And that's my entire recording. Now, what I usually do is I go to the beginning and I listen to the whole thing over again. Hundreds of founders, and almost without exception, they all think that they can avoid failure if they just work a little more, work a little harder, but that inevitably leads to burnout. Michael, like you, I grew up on the beach, and I've always found that there was never a minute misspent on a surfboard. You think you need to work 24/7, but that's draining. We want you at your best. Happy, healthy, balanced. I've worked with hundreds of founders, and then it goes again. So I go, I like that particular recording. So what I'll do is I'll say, okay, I did that a little fast. I'll go up to save, and this is once again on my custom bar, not on the home bar or anything. So I moved save to custom by doing customize up here. See the earlier lecture on DCH WavePad for how to do that. And then I'll come here and I'll save the project. Now this saves it internally in WordPad format. Now I put my name at the beginning so people can sort and easily find out who this is by. And then I go, okay, this is a conversation with Michael. So let's call it Michael. And I save the WavePad version. Now I need to submit an MP3. Later I can come back to the WavePad and I can make a Wave version or any other version from it. It's the original source. And here to submit on voices.com, I need an MP3. So unfortunately it doesn't save the name that I just wrote, Michael. So I've got to type it again. Okay, and here comes the MP3. There we go. Now, I look and I go, okay, this is to Patrick. And I always bid the low end of the talent budget. So I'm desperate for a job here, so I'm not going to go to the high end. I'm going to bid $100 for Patrick. And check out the way that I do this. First, I want to show you how I set this up. If you go to Messages and Templates, I can create a template where it will ask me what I want to say and then what the name of the template is, and I can save it. So it saves it as the subject. Now I'm going to cancel this, and I'm going to go back to my inbox. Whoops. Sorry, I got to go back to Jobs Hiring, where I'm going to go after... Yeah, there we go. This is the right one. Slaying the Monster. That's a strange title for it. Anyway, I'm going to go here and I'm going to say My Audition. So I just click on this. And because I saved a template called Audition Response, I can bring that up and it says hi. And this is to Patrick. And I'm going to bid the low end, which is $100. And This gets put into an escrow account, and the client has to pay an additional $20 to keep it in escrow by Voices.com. So I actually get paid by Voices.com out of this escrow account once everything's resolved. And then I select the MP3 video. I go to Voices where I'm saving them all. And this was Michael. So let's scroll down to Brian Jackson -Michael. And the MP3. And the MP3 loads. And I go, send audition. That's it. Now I've got another audition in hiring. And if I go to answered, I'm going to see Slaying the Monster. Neil here is my top response that I responded to. Still hiring. It's going to be hiring through the 7th. That's today. So we should actually see them go into deciding and make a decision and become completed eventually here. So I wanted to show you how simple the process is. You just do this over and over again. Like in a day, I might get 10 to 13 of them. So I go and evaluate them. Is it for the right voice? Is it the kind of thing I want to do? Do I want to do ISDN? I don't want to do that. So I delete the ones that I don't want. And then the ones that I want, I just bring up WavePad and keep it in the background, and then bring up the script, read it a couple times, go in and edit it, and I submit it with my basic blurb pitch template. And that's it. So I just wanted to show you that. I'll see you in the next lecture.